Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to another lecture. I'm not going to speak too much because I kind of want to just get this done and out of the way. And I also want to make sure that you all have enough time to go out and enjoy your day. But I still wanted to get something out for everyone. So let's see what today's lecture is going to be about. Spirit, what would you like to teach us about? I forgot I had a little snack here. What's today's lesson? What is today's lesson? What are you here to teach or guide us on today, in this present moment? Today's lesson has a lot to do with self-destruction. Today's lesson has a lot to do with self-destruction. It has a lot to do with right speech and right action. Spirit is showing us a picture of, or I guess a reflection of, our tendency to divide and destroy, is what I'm hearing. There's a tendency to divide and destroy. Why is that? Why is there this tendency to divide and destroy? A lot of it has to do with the illusion of separation. It's this illusion of our separateness, right? This illusion of me being different from you, me being separate from you. And within that sort of relationship that we have with each other, there's this tendency to create this alternate reality, right? So I am more wealthier than you. I am more knowledgeable than you. I am more successful than you. I deserve a higher place in society more than you do. Your specific group that you belong to are lower on the social hierarchy than mine is, and so therefore I get to treat you a certain way. You know what I mean? So it's this illusion of separation and division that Spirit, paints this picture of within our current energy. And as part of that, there's this what word am I looking for? There's this destructive there's this destructive there's just this destructive energy. And Spirit is saying that it has a lot to do with our speech and our actions, right? It has a lot to do with the way that we communicate and the way that we behave um, with each other and the world around us. So it's because we have this divided or illusory image of ourselves. Of course, we're going to, you know, speak negativity over each other. Of course, we're going to want to harm and destroy things. Of course, we're going to want to uh, cause physical harm to certain groups of people. Of course, we're going to want to see people suffer and see people in negative conditions because they somehow, in some way, treated us wrong. We feel wronged by certain people. And again, it's because of this sort of skewed or illusory point of view that automatically triggers our inability to create the life that we truly want as a collective human race, okay? I think I was saying this in my last lecture where I was talking about how we have this vision of ourselves, we have this vision of what we want as a human race, of what we want as a planet. You know, we have this vision of what we want. We want happiness, we want joy, we want collective success and abundance and happiness, and we all want to feel good and to have a quality experience. But, and maybe this is even subconsciously, we still have this, we're still sitting on a certain level of programming that, how do I say this? We're still, you know, sitting on a piece of programming that assumes that we are separate from each other, that causes us to see each other as separate, that causes us not to perceive the interconnectedness and the true relationship that we have to one another, okay? And so what Spirit is saying is that there's a blockage. This is a blockage. This is what is blocking um, this is what is blocking us from actually achieving certain collective goals, right? And I guess I want to preface this and say that while I'm giving this reading, it's not set in stone. You know what I mean? So while I'm saying that there's a blockage happening, at the same time, in this present moment, this energy is fleeting. You know what I mean? Because every moment is full of infinite potential. I think that's what, I obviously like to put out into the world when it comes to, chaos and things like that. Every single moment, every single second um, is full of infinite possibility. And so, again, while I'm giving this reading, I want you all to understand that this could also not be true. This could also be, energy that I'm reading from a couple hours ago. You know what I mean? So this energy is not as set in stone as one may assume. You know what I mean? So, um, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, that's the blockage here. The blockage here is um, this false image that we have um, towards ourselves and the collective. It's interesting that the notice how the page is out on both of these cards. What Spirit is showing me with, the page being prominent um, in this pull is that we're still in a very immature, I don't want to say immature. I need to be stop being so hard on us, stop being so hard on the collective. But what I'm basically trying to say is we're still young, right? We're still learning. We're still figuring things out. We're still figuring out, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to live on planet Earth? What does it mean to be a part of the grand tapestry that is the universe and nature and divinity? And what does it mean to um, to be a creator, right? What does it mean to play a creative role in creation itself, right? So Spirit is showing me this image of us graduating. I don't know why that just randomly came into my mind. I know why, but Spirit is showing me this image of us graduating or us sort of ascending to a next stage in our collective experience, in our collective awareness. And that has a lot to do with us um, understanding the role that we play as a society, understanding the creative role that we play as human beings and as basically vessels for divine energy, the divine, and things like that, and channeling that, inner deep spiritual creative power. But a lot of it requires, again, holding a mirror up to ourselves and really seeing like what we're doing, right? Really seeing and understanding that what we're doing is not creative, it's destructive, right? And neither is good or bad, right? That's what another thing that I want to um, iterate is that when I say like negative energy, positive energy, when I say destructive, creative, when I say evil, good, da 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 da, da, I'm not forcing any sort of agenda. Like I don't have any like emotional attachment to like that as a concept. When I do these readings, I'm coming from a completely non-dual point of view. And so back to what I was saying before, our behavior now is destructive, and that's not a bad thing. It just is what it is. You know what I mean? And so I think what matters more is understanding that this is what we're doing, understanding that this is the effect that our actions, that our current actions are having. And that's the energy behind what we're doing as a collective and where we are as a collective. So, how do we take that and go forward? How do we take that and act accordingly? You know what I mean? So, how do we take this current situation and what do we need to do to get back on track? You know what I mean? How do we take that and get back on course, right? Because I think another thing that I want to continue to do in my work is I want to make sure that we are staying on course in terms of our human development collectively, in terms of our evolution, in terms of our um, going up in the levels of consciousness and understanding and knowledge. And so, me kind of having that role, or me, yeah, sitting in that role and accepting that role, again, I want to make sure that you all understand that yes, this is the current energy, but okay, how do we take this and move forward? How do we take this and act accordingly? How do we take this reflection of ourselves and make the changes that we need to make the adjustments that we need to make to make sure that we stay on the path, right? Um, yeah, let me see if I can get some clarifying cards or let's see. I feel like the information is pretty clear and set in stone. I want to see. Yeah, Spirit, show me more details of this picture that we're painting. Show me more details of this picture that we're painting. Yeah. So again, Spirit is showing us that there's still this reliance on ego. There's this reliance on ego and our tendency to always want to be like righteous, right? I think the right word is like self-righteousness, but I could be wrong. But there is this basically spirit is pointing us to our egos. So think about situations individually and collectively where you felt like it was more important to be right than be understood, right? Think about situations where you felt like it was more important to be seen as the strongest person in the room as opposed to being level with the person in terms of both people being level with each other and again coming from a place of understanding. Think about, those moments where you felt like you wanted to be the person that had the last word, right? And it's even in the image, like this person's like, oh, I got the last word, ha ha he, you know, I got them, like I did that, it's that energy. And so think about situations like that where you just from that primal place of just wanting to be right, wanting to be the strongest person, wanting to be like big and bad and like, oh, I'm not one to play with. That's a very ego driven energy to be in. And what Spirit is saying is that as part of this sort of blockage that we currently run, that we, not currently, that we tend to run into, as part of that blockage, there's like we have to work on our egos basically. And so it's about moving past our egos. It's about figuring out how to move past our own desire to be to be right, self-righteousness, and thinking consciously about, okay, what do we collectively want and how do we collectively achieve that? Okay. And what Spirit is pointing me to is like specifically our conversations, right? Both individually and collectively. So individually, when you're at home or when you're out with friends and or even like on social media, and you feel the tendency, like you have this tendency to, want to debate people, want to, you know, tell people that they're wrong, that they have this limited point of view, that, you know, they're wrong and you're right, and they don't have everything figured out and you do, and, you know, they're not living their lives correctly and things like that. That tendency there, that's something that we should be paying attention to, okay, individually, like on our day-to-day basis, right? And collectively, when we observe, things in the media like the news and I don't know, certain areas of politics and stuff like that, think about, like what was I thinking about earlier? Like really think about like when we talk about things, are we coming from a place of actually solving the problem? Are we coming from a place of there's a word for that. Yeah, are we coming from a place of being solutions based? Like, are we taking a solutions based approach towards the things that we're discussing? Or do we just want to speak? Like, do we just want to like spill out our sentiments? Do we just want to complain and, you know, just argue with each other? And that's fine. Again, I'm not saying that like anything is good or bad. I'm just saying, I'm just reflecting back what the energy is. And so when we think about that, when we think about, just our tendency to constantly go back and forth with each other, constantly uh, coming up with certain like policies and things like that, that seem to scratch the surface but doesn't really necessarily solve the issue at its core, right? When we argue with people and we um, when we bring things up with people that, again, only scratches the surface but doesn't get to the core of the issue. um, think about that cycle. Like it constantly rolls around and around and around because nobody's getting to the core of the issue. And so, again, when you think about your day to day activities, when you think about us as a collective, it's important for us to think about, are we coming from, like, are we trying to actually come to a solution to our problems? Or are we just here to, excuse me, are we just here to listen to the sound of our own voices, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I think what's important though is to understand that we're at least conscious of what we're doing, and we are aware enough to basically notice what we're doing, stop if it no longer serves us, and move on to something that's more productive. And this is something that we can't rush. This is something that we can't rush. I have the feeling that this has a lot to do with um again, it's that sort of illusion of, like, you know, everything's kind of like going to HE double hockey sticks. But I think what Spirit is showing me here is like there's there's change happening for the better, right? There's change happening for the better. And while that's happening so slowly but surely, there's also this dark cloud in the air that feels just really intense, and like everything is just seems to be like falling apart and everyone just seems to be on edge, right? I think that's why this card came out, because again, like, it's this energy of, us as a collective just feeling so on edge, which again is causing us to, behave so um behave in the ways that we do. um, yeah, which causes us to behave in the ways that we do. But again, it's because through this limited lens of ourselves and each other, it just feels like, nothing is like nothing is, working out. Everything is like being destroyed. Like we're not gonna have a future. Just this overall pessimistic, negative point of view of everything, right? But what Spirit is saying is that there's, on the other end of that spectrum, there is something good to come out of all of this. There is something very good and abundant and prosperous to come out of it. It's just happening very slowly and very surely. Okay? Because we have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of repairing to be done. There's a lot of relearning and rewiring to be done. Again, that's why I'm doing the work that I'm doing right now, because there's a lot of work to be done. And it requires, again, getting to the core of our issues. Okay? It requires getting into the core of our spirit, getting into the core of our hearts, getting into the core of our minds, and the narratives that we're running on, the programs that we're running on, to restructure how we see ourselves and each other and the world around us, so that we can have the tools that we need, so that we can have the knowledge, information, lens, point of view that we need to create the life that we want. Okay? It's almost as if, like, how do I describe this? It's almost as if we're working with a canvas. But right now, the canvas, it still has this old image, it still has this old painting that, we liked at first, right? We loved it at first. It was great. It worked, up until a certain point. But then all of a sudden, that painting got a little bit skewed. It got a little bit like, wait, this actually isn't, I'm not actually satisfied with this image, right? I'm not actually satisfied with this this body of work that I've created that is reality. And so now is the time we're sitting in this energy of us really not being satisfied with this image that we've drawn for ourselves, with this blueprint that we've stamped onto our reality. And now what I'm doing and what, collectively we're doing is we're basically cleaning up our mess. We're basically cleaning up, the canvas. We're basically wiping the canvas clean so that again we have a clear vision. We can create a clear vision of what we want, and we can create that body of work, create that reality that we want with a clear conscious. Okay. So, yeah, but again, it takes time. And even then, you can see like the little snail here. I don't know if you can really like see it, but like there's like a really small snail here. And basically, it basically means what I said, like, um, slow and steady wins the race. I don't know why I said that. I feel like that was really corny. But anyway, let's get back to the lecture. Um, but yeah, it takes time. It's gonna take nurturing ourselves. It's gonna take being uh giving each other grace. Because again, it's an everyday thing. Like it's not a linear process, you know what I mean? It's gonna take time. It's gonna take constantly reworking the things that we've been kind of running, autopilot on. But that's okay. That's part of the process. Even in my own individual experience, I always tell people, I'm like, yes, I am in a much like better like situation, like mental health wise and spirituality wise and emotionally and things like that, but it's an everyday conscious effort of um working through the shadow. Basically, we're doing that inner shadow work of working through the things that did not serve me, does not serve me, working through, the narrative that I'm telling myself about certain people or certain situations, right? Working through that sort of again, that mental process of, um, integrating the experiences that we go through in a way that is productive to me and beneficial to me. And again, that's coming through here as well, where it's like it's gonna take some nurturing. It's gonna take a little bit of taming the lion and looking at ourselves. I think like this is us. There's no separation between, the young woman here and the lion, but it's about taming that inner lion, taming that need to be the strongest in the room, taming that need to, you know, sorry, I'm getting a message. Um, Taming 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 that need to be right, taming that need to be the most nonchalant, detached person, right? It's gonna take some vulnerability. It's gonna take some, letting those walls down and being open and honest with yourself and with the people that you love and with each other as a collective. Um, this might sound a little bit unorthodox, or it might sound a little bit extreme, but I think at our core, when I think of humanity and when I think of the universe and when I think of planet Earth, I think deep at our core, we truly, truly, truly do love each other. We just don't know what that means. We don't know how to express that love to each other. Um, and we don't know how to, again, develop that kind of relationship with each other without, again, feeling as though our egos are at risk. Okay? Because love is a egoless thing. Love, you can't have an ego when it comes to love. I think that's what love does. It kind of penetrates the ego and it goes deep into the soul. And it's just like, again, it just is what it is. And so, in order to embody love and in order to develop a community on planet Earth that is based on that loving um, relationship, that loving sense of self, right? It requires, again, taming that sort of desire to, be the only person in the room, right? It requires, letting go of your ego and just being open and honest and opening yourself to, that vulnerability that we all share. And I think it also requires understanding that we're all having this experience together. Like we all get to exist at the same time as each other. And when you really sit with that, you realize like that's such an intimate thing to like share life with each other, to share like being alive at this point in time with each other. And just imagine like what we can do um when we when we really take that seriously, when we really take seriously the fact that we're having a shared experience, we're on this planet together at the same time, you know we all have so many wonderful talents and knowledge and abilities. And what if we all, like, and again, this might sound corny, but it's, I'm coming from a genuine place. Um, what if we all came together and we created something beautiful and amazing and something we've never seen before? That's something I think about all the time. I'm like, if we all could just like get together and just from this common place of understanding and awareness consciously create a beautiful, fulfilling life for ourselves. Just imagine like when we go and our time is done, we can all collectively say that we lived the most wonderful, beautiful, amazing life that we could ever live because we did it together and we did it, with each other. I think that's the most beautiful thing, and that's why I'm so like passionate about this work because I see it and I feel it and I know that it's possible. Um, and all it takes is that spark of possibility that you know I now know that we can create that, we can actually do it. And so that's all that I'm getting from this reading. I hope it wasn't too long-winded, but yeah, I love you guys. I hope everyone is doing well. And yeah, I hope everyone's staying safe. Be good. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Love you. Bye.